just want to say a huge thank you for your participation. We absolutely love to see you get involved. So the only things left to do now are to sit back, relax, have you got your munchies? And enjoy the show.
Hey everybody, welcome to Geeksvana Live. It's great to see you all here. Thank you very much for joining us. Tonight we're talking about UK drone laws, and we're having a bit of a Q&A on that side of things. So if you have any questions, put at Geeksvana and then your question in the chat, and we'll put it to our expert panel who will hopefully be able to give some kind of guidance or answer. If we can't, we'll come back to you. We've also got a couple of cool videos to show you this evening as well. Can't really call them viewer videos because one of them is from my co-host Stephen as well, who is backstage. Tonight we're joined by Stephen of Flyby Guys, Stephen Sutton, who you will know well now, Andrew McQuillan, some dodgy guy from Crowded Space Drones, who is very kindly giving us his time again as the, I think his official title is now the King of Drones. I'm not sure. And we're also waiting for, hopefully, waiting for Andrew Hamilton, the former CAA drone lead, who is having a few issues connecting to his hotel Wi-Fi at the moment. And we'll discuss in a few minutes why that is directly Andrew McQuillan's fault. So hopefully he'll be able to join us a little bit later as well. But just going through the chat to say hi to a few of the early birds. Thank you very much for joining us. Els Meghead, our senior moderator, good to see you. Peter Campbell, hello sir. One of our channel members. Shippers Dronefield, good to see you as well. Mr. Moneyman. Mike Drennan is off to Pittsburgh later, and he has his new Geeksvana t-shirt packed in his suitcase. Awesome. That's good to hear. So I'm glad that we finally got all of our merch out the door and across to people. Everyone should now have that. Lynn Smith, good to see you. I know you've recently subscribed. Lindsay Hayes, hi, good to see you. Stevie, Capture Life. Mike Miller, hello. Welsh lad. So many good people joining us this evening. So many of our regulars, and I really do appreciate you doing that. So let's bring in the co-host, shall we? Hello, guys. Evening. Oh, and now he's all Mr. Calm and professional. Uh-oh. Here for the cheese too. Was I misinformed from Treetop Flyer? No, that the cheese is most definitely in full effect, yes. Especially with me as the main host, but there we go. Yeah, we'll see what happens. So, Andrew, we're missing an Andrew this evening, and I think it's your fault. Would you like to comment on that? So, okay, let me put it into context first of all for the audience. So, you are the CEO, founder of Crowded Space Drones, are you not? Yes, which is an awesome company doing wonderful things despite the lockdown in the drone industry, expanding every other day, gaining new contracts every other day, and doing a wonderful job. So congratulations on that, by the way, and thank you very much for all of your time that you've given to Geeksvana recently. However, you then had the extremely innovative and forward-thinking move of bringing Andrew Hamilton into Crowded Space Drones. That's not very helpful, is it? Let me see if we mixed. Okay, I'm going to play a very quick video, and then we'll come back with audio. Thank you, guys. Okay, well, that was fun, wasn't it? Would you like to say something, Andrew, so I can verify that your audio is working? Do you know your audio is still not working? Hang on 1 second. Let me just do this. There you go.
Hello.
Can everyone hear me?
Hello.
And I'll just turn it off a little. Yes, I'll have to do it through the...
Can you hear me?
So there we go. Everyone should now be able to hear everybody. I can turn you up and down as we need to. So apologies there. Everybody got to see one of my previous flights, which I have 3 emergency flights of my previous flights on buttons. That was actually the former RAF nuclear base, RAF Barnum, which was an interesting one because I had to get permission from Mildenhall, etc., in that area to fly there. Yeah, there was all sorts of permissions I had to gain from all the people on the ground and all these other types of things, which was all good fun. But yes, I'd like to have.
I'm concerned you might run out of emergency test tapes at some point. And you can't really get out in lockdown to film that much, so it's a concern. No, he's
so as I was saying, as I was saying before, so we have an issue here that, as I say, fantastic company, Credit Space Drones, very generous to Geeksvana because you guys spend a lot of time with us and therefore our community in trying to help us with things like the new UK drone laws. But it appears you're so cheap that you've put someone as serious as Andrew Hamilton, former CAA drone lead, who is now a pivotal member of your team, in what can only be described as a 1-star, 2-star hotel with dodgy Wi-Fi.
I would say they're previously a low-cost hotel. I would say they're more luxury now. I'd say they're very luxurious, in fact.
So, do you want to name drop the brand to see if you can get a further discount?
I would like to just share that at the moment I am staying at the Sheraton.
There you go. You should take.
Given
note.
there's only 3 of those in the UK, not the easiest thing in the world to put someone into. We've got one literally in the middle of Ireland, and then there's one. I know there's one in Edinburgh and there's one in London. So it's not the easiest thing there. It's like when you join Crowded Space Drones, the pecking order very clearly is when you're probationary, it's bed sit level. Then you move up to the more luxurious surroundings of a travel lodge, and then the world's your oyster from there. We recently stayed in a Marriott, a very expensive Marriott. We only stayed there.
Very expensive.
You recently stayed, isn't that similar to like taking your girlfriend to a new hotel because she's the new girlfriend, and then once you've married her, taking her to Premier Inn?
Premier, that's a big.
That's a very, very good point. That's a very, very good point.
That's all I'm saying. That's all I'm saying. I'm just like to stick up for Andrew Hamilton in his absence here. Look, Premier Inns are a very good hotel. I take Lenny Henry at his word. Yes, but I would argue that perhaps they don't spend enough on their Wi-Fi or wherever it is.
Categorically, they seem to be.
As I said that, Stephen jumped across the screen.
The reason
I'm just going to say that the Flyby guys exclusively stay at the Sheraton.
Mr. Moneyman has just said, did he really say luxury of a travel lodge? This is where the credibility of Andrew McQuillan starts.
We're not talking. American travel lodges are different. Rats don't even stay in American travel lodges. We're talking British travel lodges.
Yeah, so am I. Yeah.
He's above travel lodge now. He's moving his way up to very luxurious levels.
Okay. Well, can we please ensure that on future live streams where he's going to be he's going to be kindly joining Geeksvana, that CSD can up his level a little bit so that we can get some decent Wi-Fi. That's all I'm asking.
Well, just if you've got such an expansive network of viewers now, things, if you can just purchase an OB truck, like a satellite dish truck, and let that go to your guests every week.
Does CSD not have one though? Doesn't CSD have one of those?
We have several of those actually.
But could you not just have one follow him?
Hire them. I have no problem hiring them to you.
Well, could you not just have one follow him? Okay, we're getting onto an in argument now. So this evening we're going to be talking about UK drone laws. If you have a question, tag at Geeksvana in the chat so I can spot it. We've also got a few other subject matters, which are some that I've brought up for us to discuss as a panel, as well as looking at a couple of pretty cool videos actually, including one from Stephen's adventures over in Dubai. And we've also got one of a spacesuit controlling a drone, which is pretty cool. Just very quickly, thank you Rob Kamada for the $5 super chat. Just saying hello. No need to read the super chat. Okay. Well, I've read it anyway, but thank you very much. I really appreciate it, sir. Very much so. So yes, so we do have our first question in the chat actually, which is from Mr. Moneyman, who's one of our channel members. Good to see you, sir. Geeksvana, I'm currently doing a lot of footage with my Mavic Air 2, good drone, of a construction site. I have permission of the site manager, but it's next to a park. Would the A2 CFC make any difference to limits? Well, it depends where the construction site is. If the construction site is in a built-up area, then without any kind of qualification, as is like the A2 CFC, you would have to stay 150 meters away from that built-up area. The A2 CFC would allow you to bring those distances down, and then of course, when you're on a construction site, you can argue that those people, as long as they're correctly informed, that those people become involved people. So you have a little bit more freedom from that point of view. Would you agree with that, Andrew?
Yeah, I think it depends on how big your construction site is.
Yeah.
I mean, we've looked at one recently, which was it's in a big city and it's a very small site, but it's going to be a very tall building, and it's easy enough when the building starts without any foundations because there's a site to fly from. But then once you get into the building going up and up and up, and you're having to fly from the active construction floors,
yes,
it gets a little bit more complicated, and with distances as well. So yeah, the key thing is how big is this construction site and what do you actually need to do there?
Exactly. I mean, it's one of those questions. I had a question earlier on the channel from somebody who was a runner for TV and wants to use their drone for commercial, which obviously has changed. But then actually I did explain to them, actually, you've got so many other things to think about. It's difficult to give advice for that specific thing. Because, for instance, you could be in that construction site, which is 100 meters by 100 meters, and you're flying in the middle, then, with permission and everyone's involved, then you're okay with an A2 CFC. If you're at the edge of that construction site and there is, as he says, a park next door and there's people in that park, then keeping that 50-meter horizontal might be difficult. So there's factors within it. Personally, as someone that sat the A2 CFC and passed it, I'm really pleased with it. I still fly the Mini 2 and the Mini a lot from the point of view of the sub 250, so it gives me a little bit more of a peace of mind. But I'm making more and more flights as I get used to the whole A2 CFC side of things, which is good fun and very interesting. Right, our first subject matter is actually drone classes, which is an interesting one. So this is a question we get asked a lot. This is a debate we get. People say, oh, it's CE, or it's UK CAA, or it's C marking, it's blah, blah, blah. What are they going to be? A little bit of backstory for those who don't know about this. Part of the new UK drone regulations, and indeed the EASA drone regulations as well, there's going to be C0 to C4 class of drones, going from toys up to your more serious pieces of kit. So you have the C1, C2 will be your Mavic Air 2s and that type of thing. And those labels will then allow you to do certain things. For instance, with a C2 drone with the A2 CFC in a built-up area, you'll be able to get within 5 meters of people because it's going to have a slow mode button on the controller. Now, there's of course, because we have this legacy period where you can fly our existing drones in the different classes up to the end of 2022. People are now sort of starting to comment on the channel and say, okay, I'm considering buying an Air 2, but I don't really want it to only last to the end of 2022. I'm considering doing X, Y, Z. When do you think we'll start seeing drone classes? I think one of the biggest issues probably there is the fact that we still don't know what the drone class system is going to be yet, what it's necessarily going to be called, and whether we're going to adopt the EU's one, whether we're going to have our own one, that type of thing, and how different it will be, because there are, under Cap 722 with the UK drone regulations, there are key differences between the UK and EU EASA regulations, and it'll be interesting to see if those drone classes happen. Have you heard anything more on the drone class side of things, Andrew?
Well, obviously we have the draft paper from the government, which talks about kite marking drones. And from what I read, I haven't read that in detail, but from what I read, that is very much a sort of, okay, copy that and just stamp, so if you get a C2 stamp, you get a Kite Mark 2 stamp.
Yeah.
That makes it easier for manufacturers. What I can say is, let's squash the legacy thing first, in terms of I would happily put money on there'll be no retrospective marking of legacy drones, because part of the reason it's 2023 for this is there's other technology requirements going to come out that do not apply to any current drones that are required as part of the classifications. That's primarily remote ID. And some countries have sort of announced what they're doing with remote ID, but obviously we need a European EASA-wide thing to really set the standard in terms of the CE marking for that. But there are technology things coming out now. Yes, I'm not saying you may be able to adapt your drone to get some sort of marking or in the future, but in terms of having a just stamped on it or whatever, CE marking, that's not going to happen. That people need to stop being not delusional, but they need to be realistic in terms of what's going to happen.
Exactly, and that's actually something which Mr. Moneyman has asked in the chat as well about the retroactive marking, and it's an interesting one because we did a video a while ago where DJI was saying actually we think that a lot of our drones already adhere to certainly EASA, forgetting UK for a moment.
As it sits today, what the rules are today for those aircraft, a lot of drones do comply, but December this year, specific category drones have to have remote ID in the UK, and then after that for open category, those are things that none of the aircraft currently comply with.
Exactly, and you've also got the factor that of course DJI want you to keep buying drones, so of course they're going to say that actually yes, we are hoping that there'll be and indeed that particular that particular release was actually aimed towards the enterprise side of things. Obviously, somebody that's got a £30,000 Matrice or something, they're going to want to know that they can potentially get that labelled if they're going to be buying that at some point later this year. So I would agree with what you're saying, and especially from the point of view that actually by the time the markings actually come into being, the definitions are going to change so much that it just your Mavic Air 2 will unfortunately be pretty much irrelevant. So yes, but time will tell on this. I mean, it's already
technically
changed.
Speaking, because nothing's decided, DJI obviously have proposed a remote ID solution in that area. If technically that was adopted, there's more of a likelihood of their drones that have that technology being accepted. I just would not put my money on that's what's going to happen.
No, indeed, and it's just worthwhile for UK drone flyers to realise that when we hear EASA things happening from now on, that isn't necessarily what's going to happen here in the UK, because although this was an adoption of EASA via CAP 722, it is still a different thing. So there is a differential there, which is important, which we need to be very aware of. Good. Okay. Well, that's.
Just ask, Stephen, is there a Finland thing for remote ID, or is there any timescales or anything for Finland?
We actually just got notified last week about our, let's say, remote ID, and it's actually a company here in Dubai, as far as I'm aware. I haven't.
Is there any link between your trip to Dubai and this news?
Absolutely none. Actually, absolutely none.
Breaking news.
It was just released. There was just a press release. In fact, actually, someone from AirMap actually contacted me because of that. Actually, and I know the AirMap thing is, the AirMap thing is a bit controversial at the moment. But someone from AirMap actually contacted me to ask how this has come about, because I won't say who it was, because it came out of the blue, and we didn't have any, there was no warning about it. But I can't even remember the name of the company actually, because I've been so busy, so I've not had the chance to really kind of look into it too much. But all I know is that it's a company from Dubai, and that's all. And we were quite surprised, even the guys here. So we get notified about a lot about what's going on, especially now. I'm now in Arpas, Finland, so we get a lot of information. And this was completely out of the blue.
Is that company sort of linked to UTM type solutions as well? Is that sort of long-term strategy for UTM?
Yes.
Interesting.
Yes.
That's where it's all going. I mean, every country's going to end up with
right.
As far as I'm aware,
remote ID is a stepping stone to UTM, no matter what everyone says.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. Can I just confirm something? And Andrew, where in the world are you sat right now?
I'm in our Belfast head office.
Okay, so you're not in the opposite corner of the hotel room that Stephen's in Dubai, because your wall colours and the white detailing is suspiciously similar.
It's very noticeable that well.
Do you have a neon pineapple?
No, but nor do I have a whole row of Ladybird books as well. No.
Oh, that's harsh.
Those are all very technical books.
Didn't I see Branson's autobiography in there? But okay.
There's actually 2 Branson books in there.
Okay, excellent. One from Mike Drennan very quickly, which actually isn't it is a question actually. Shirley, who is Shirley Drennan. Hi, Mike and Shirley, who are only Mr. and Mrs. Channel members, is scheduled to sing at Cadogan Hall in London in June. With the new rules, what would you suggest tourists travel with? Full 750 grams GPS drone or a small Cinewoop sub 250 grams? Firstly, that's awesome to hear you're coming to London. When you guys know more about that, let me know, because I would love to meet up and socially distance, say hi, and do something to say hi to you guys while you're over here. Secondly, as far as people coming into this country, if it's a drone with a camera, then you would still have to get an operator ID, which is a very simple thing to do. You pay your £9, and then you have a little number which you print out and put on there. And if it's over that, you'd need a flyer ID as well. My general advice would be to stick to the sub 250, because sub 250 there's no separation, that type of thing. You're able to fly in built-up areas subject to the air zones and that type of thing. I can have a further chat with you over email on that, Mike. But generally, I would say sub 250. Would you agree with that, Andrew? To keep it simple.
Yeah, I mean, I think obviously there's no flight test per se with the A2. You do have to have a certain amount of flying hours sort of experience to get to obtain your A2, as it varies depending on our A2 and extends. We've seen some recently they're saying 4 hours, whereas some are happy at 2 hours.
Yes.
So what technically those should be in UK airspace as far as I'm aware in terms of where those flights take place. But if you're coming for a while, there's nothing to stop you doing your A2 online, and then before you sit the exam for you to prove those hours, do the hours when you get here in a park, maybe with Sean, socially distant.
Yep.
And then you could get your A2, and then that would help you while you're here.
Exactly. Yes. So yeah, Mike, we'll have to chat on that one in more detail over email to see how long you're here for and that type of thing. What type of footage you'd hope to get, because also where you're going to be there, Cadogan Hall in London, there's a lot of flight restrictions as well. So it'd be interesting.
Whereabouts is that? I don't know that one.
Cadogan Hall. I will have to look that one up.
It just sounds centrally.
I believe it is. Yeah.
I don't know of any halls on the outskirts.
Yeah, SW1X. So
okay.
That's Belgravia. So you won't be doing much flying outside the theatre. That's for sure. But as I say,
that's definitely an area that's going to call the police very quickly.
Yes,
sure.
Yes, you could become very famous very quickly.
To happen.
Okay, Comedy Hunter. Hi, I got my first drone 3 weeks ago. It's a DJI Mini 2 and love it. Excellent. Found your videos very informative. Am I right in saying it's okay to fly over roads as long as it's high enough? Well, the separations aren't really about sort of structures and vehicles, vessels, etc. anymore. It is the separations of people. But again, you obviously have to bear in mind as well, there's Article 241 of the Air Navigation Order about making sure that your flight is safe. So it depends on what road you're flying over. For instance, where I am, there's a very quiet road next to me where I probably get 1 or 2 cars every 10 minutes. I would be safe in assuming that flying over it at speed without hovering over the road when there's nothing, when I can clearly see that there's no cars in the area, is safe. Now, the main road further up, that there's constant traffic backwards and forwards, I'm not sure I could necessarily justify that, even though the Mini 2 is allowed to fly over people. So it's about assessing the individual situation. Would you agree with that, Andrew?
The category of road and also the time of day and things like that, i.e. how busy it is, that's very important. Again, it's about having should the worst happen, it's about having a list of things you have done to protect people and property. Because remember, you have to look after structures, people, vessels, vehicles. You have to look after them in terms of any potential fallout from the flight.
Exactly.
So you don't do the flight unless you can make sure every one of those are protected and safe. So if it's in the middle of nowhere, I mean, rural is the easiest, because if it's rural with no cars and no people walking down the road, and you keep to the distance requirements for uninvolved property, etc., then you're good. If you're talking about the M25, no. under any circumstances.
Yes.
It's road is that sort of one term
Yes.
that has the most variance.
Exactly.
It's very hard to say a road. You can't talk about a road. You have to talk about the road.
Yeah, because even when you're talking about the sub 250 Mini 2, it is the flight safety aspect where and a lot of the new rules have switched across to the risk side of things, and the safety side of things in terms of your actual flight. So you have to assess what's actually going on in the individual flight rather than saying yes, I can fly over every house, or yes, I can fly over every road, that type, or over every type of person. I think the type of person matters, but the amount of people, that type of thing. So there's always variances there.
And just remember as well, in terms of uninvolved people, the new regulations give very clear guidance in terms of what counts as getting someone involved.
Yes.
Someone involved in a flight has to be that willing to do it proactively, essentially not volunteering. They can't just be assumed to be involved.
Yes.
And it can't be signage or PA systems and a few other things.
Yes, so indeed. You can't go into your local park and shout.
There's a drone flying here and putting a sign out. That doesn't count.
Indeed, because again, to be an involved person, they have to know what to do in the event of they hear you scream a particular.
Yeah, they have to have a safety briefing by the remote pilot and things.
Exactly. So
they have to have the knowledge of what the risk is and make a choice that they want to be involved.
Exactly. So that if they hear you shout, drone failure, they know that that's the keyword to look up and run in the opposite direction to the falling piece of plastic, basically. So yes, there are key factors. Colin Simon or Simon, apologies if I'm mispronouncing that. If I stick a 10-gram light on a Mavic Mini, 249 grams, am I good to fly with it in the A1 airspace during the legacy period as he has his A2 CFC? It appears you can fly up to 500 grams and just want to be sure. Yes, you're correct that you're able to do the A1, although you have to remember that whilst you're on the sub 500 over 250, you lose the automatic right to fly over people. There's a strange wording about unintentional flight over people, but really you're not supposed to fly over people when it moves into that bracket, essentially. Interestingly, the Mini 2, for anybody that is interested, is coming in at some odd weights at the moment, including on some very precise scales. Some people are getting back about 237 grams. So actually, if you added a 10-gram light to that, you would still be sub 250. I don't know if that would help at all.
I left it yesterday. It was actually from our team's Mavic Mini 2 without the battery in it. I think a sheet of paper weighs more. I mean, the battery has to account for a good 80% of that weight.
Oh yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah, without a battery in it, they are very. Mine's in the other room. They are very, very light, and there are, depending on the batch, there are different things. Apparently, the front LED was supposed to be a front sensor, which would have brought the weight up, but it wasn't ready in time. Billy Kyle, who's one of the on the DJI partners list, he tweeted that out a while ago to say that he'd been told that that will be part of the Mini 3, which made me lose my will to live for a moment, thinking another one's around the corner. But iPhone refresh, anybody? Yeah, so that's an interesting one. Next up on the general list to speak about is actually, can you bring drones into a business effectively with the A2 CFC? And this is something I wanted to put specifically to you, Andrew, because the A2 CFC, of course, and with the change from the point of view that it's risk-based, and you no longer need the PFSO specifically to be able to do commercial operations. So as someone with an A2 CFC, I could technically, well, I do have commercial insurance because I just got it because I wanted it. So I wanted to test out how you can get it. Although I haven't used it commercially yet. Could I, in your opinion, as someone that runs a very successful drone business at different levels, because you do all sorts of different types of operation, is an A2 CFC enough to be able to run a successful drone business from?
The question you initially said there was to bring drones into a business or something along those lines. So
yes.
There's that question, or there's building a drone business around it.
I would say bringing in.
So if you want to bring drones into a big enough business that would need volume, I don't think A2 is that way to do that. A combination of A2 GVC combined course, yes, but the reason being is I come from a health and safety background, so that's my main focus on a lot of things.
Yes.
If I'm a health and safety manager for a construction company or things like that, the most risk is when you fly, and if you don't have a flight test, I don't know if you're good at it or not, and I'm not competent as a health and safety manager on a construction site. I'm not competent to say you can do that safely or not.
Exactly.
So I think from a business perspective, if you're bringing drones in and there's a risk involved, and you have a health and safety structure within that company, or some of the accreditations like ISO 45001, etc., require that, I think you would. A2 is no. It's CVC is the way to do it.
Okay.
You may want the A2 permission for that pilot just for the distance reasons and things.
Yes.
And do a combined course, but unless that pilot has been flight tested, which you can obviously arrange separate to A2 as well.
You can.
But that's the key thing, is the flight test. I think in terms of if you want to start a drone business at A2, it's fantastic.
Okay. So you don't think that the 50-meter horizontal, etc., sort of holds you back from being able to gain a lot of the shots and the footage that a lot of clients would want?
You need to specialize. That's what we always say. You need to specialize.
Find
we're
what works
currently
within it.
A previous PIFCO was 50 meters away from people. Okay, it was a bubble more than a horizontal distance.
Yes.
But at one point back in the day when I first came into this, everyone thought it was a cylinder. So people still worked then.
Exactly. Okay, from the chat, Chris P, is that kiting? Yes, I think so. Hi guys, just recently into FPV and live on a 10-acre small holding, which is private land. If I want to use goggles on my own, would I still need a spotter with me? Yes. Simple answer, yes. If you are using FPV goggles, whether it's with an FPV drone, a camera drone, or anything else like that, or for whatever reason you don't intend on watching the drone, so it could be that you want to look at the screen to be very precise about the shots you're getting, you need a spotter. And that is because the airspace, of course, is controlled by the CAA, and the CAA themselves, to an extent, don't care where you're flying from. It's the fact that you are flying.
Unless you build the marquee,
yes,
fly inside it and close all the doors.
Yes, exactly.
I'm the solutions guy.
Indeed, because there is also, with the Article 16 authorization, there's you even still need a spotter with that for the FPV UK and BMFA members, and you can actually have one spotter rather than having lots of spotters, but obviously that doesn't help you because you're flying alone in a field. But yes, technically you would need that. That is one of the areas of regulation that interests me, because I always feel that, and I've said this a few times in the last couple of weeks on different channel streams that I've been guests on, that I feel like sometimes there's a disconnect because the FPV community are asked to obviously adhere to the regulations, as of course they should do, the same as us camera drone flyers do. But the fact that we know that most FPV flyers don't fly with spotters kind of makes the whole thing fall down at the first hurdle. Do you think that there's an argument, guys, Stephen and Andrew, to have some kind of, I don't know, if it's below the treetops and there is no one within 50 meters, that you can fly with just the goggles, with no spotter?
Well, I think there's a problem in the fact that, you have to have the spotter. The problem for me is there's different rules on accredited sites for BMFA and on FPV and things like that. Now, I would flip it. So you're saying that the FPV side are sort of disadvantaged to an extent in terms of rules. I would flip it and actually see that a lot of drone pilots, commercial as well, see that they get a lot of extra buoyancy in the rules in terms of their own permissions and things and approvals. So I think it's relatively even. But okay. I mean,
but do you see an inherent risk, an issue with the fact that, not myself, because you'd probably question how good an FPV pilot I could possibly be, but
until something new comes out.
yeah, indeed. But a skilled FPV pilot flying in a field below tree level, so below, 50, 60 feet, and there is no one in that area, whether or not there is necessarily a risk factor, an increased risk factor on that person wearing goggles rather than having pure line of sight of the drone.
I mean, if the CAA said, right, nothing not under your control within 500 meters, and you can only fly 200 meters.
Yes,
I personally wouldn't have an issue with that because there's a margin of safety in place. I mean, it could be that somebody puts that as an operational authorization to the CAA. It could be that you go to FPV UK and say, "Can we request this because we have a big enough site?" Most times they don't have a big enough site. So I would contact FPV UK and those other organisations and say, "Well, why don't we put this to the CAA?"
Yes, exactly. And Simon Dale of FPV UK
What's the Finland status for FPV like that?
I actually have no clue, because there's, I mean, there is, you know, an FPV, let's say Finland, with the community, but I'm not really too let's say genned up on that.
Is there a big model aircraft community?
Yes, very big,
very big in Finland, and very serious. Very serious. A lot of the really big models.
I mean,
is FPV too jovial for them?
Yeah, it's like, you know, even some of the guys here with me, actually, they are, you know, they're big model aircraft guys as well, you know, as well as being actual pilots, you know, so they've been involved in all of that. So they, you know, they have their own, like, you know, they have their own rules. They have their, you know, they have their own, let's say, community. They have their own way of doing things, and you know, they take it very, very seriously. And I think that's one reason. I know, you know, I think we've had this conversation before. That, you know, why they don't feel, you know, or let's say they feel a bit hard done by the drone laws that are coming in, because they do self-regulate. In fact, we just had this conversation about 1.5 hours ago, sort of the same thing. They have been self-regulating. They know, you know, because they have the responsibility. They build themselves. They know what they should be doing, because they haven't went out to a shop and bought one. You know,
that's
they
right.
Built it from
That's
scratch.
right.
They understand aviation.
So
it's
the benchmark to getting into it
it.
is much higher, isn't it? The benchmark to getting into that
Yes.
side of the hobby is much higher.
Yeah.
You actually do need to know what you're doing, essentially.
And you will not be accepted into the community. So if you know, you can't fly anywhere, so you have to go to one of these model aircraft clubs where there are certain places to fly, and you won't, you just won't be accepted. You know.
See, I know that especially the model aircraft community, obviously they do, the technical skill is fantastic there, and you know, they know those systems inside out. They, you know, I don't know if anyone in the UK saw, there was a film on New Year's Day which was David Williams rebuilds Chitty Chitty Bang Bang.
Yes.
But it was a drone. And it basically went disastrously wrong, and they had to get the model aircraft community in to help them fix it. And it worked perfectly once they got involved. But the thing I would say is, the one thing that my concern is with that community is they're used to flying their own sites and things like that, and it's sort of quite well controlled. I am worried, and I think that's why the regulations include them, is because there's perhaps a blinkers over their own operations as that compared to what goes on outside of that they could still fly into the area and things. So I'm not saying they're complacent or a problem. I'm just saying I think that they've got such a good knowledge on the technical side for what they're doing, but they maybe focus on that so much. Whereas when we're, you know, doing drone stuff in London, you don't have to focus as much because the product's already there. And you can then focus on a lot of other safety-related stuff on the periphery of that. So I think that's because we're going from site to site, whereas they're on fixed sites.
Yes.
So I think they're included.
But a good example of that, there's one airfield in Finland, not too far from Helsinki, and there's a model aircraft field within the air itself. So you'll have planes coming into land, and you'll have model aircraft flying at the same time.
Crikey,
you know?
yeah.
Oh,
and that's just normal. That's just it's.
Well, we had that in the UK because back when the Heathrow incident happened, on 27 right at Heathrow, there's a model aircraft club. I think it's still there.
It's been closed. It's gone.
It's been closed. It's closed.
Yeah.
Well, it was there at the time.
So basically, after that incident, they were like, maybe not. It's gone now.
I mean, they were through their field was like 3 meters short of the 1K boundary anyway.
They got some fantastic shots. You could get some amazing photography of your heli hovering with a 747 very close in the background.
But yeah, no, it's I think it's a community that do need loved. I think it needs to be loved more between all the different groups of drones.
Yes.
Because I think it can get quite hostile at times, and I think it's just from a lot of people don't take the time to look at other people's perspective and things.
No, I
You know,
agree.
some drone pilots will just assume that model aircraft fly anywhere, whereas they don't realize the whole fixed site things and license sites and licenses and stuff.
Exactly.
And I think there's that legacy issue where you were told you had to get a model aircraft certificate back in the day to fly a drone commercially and all this sort of stuff. So I think it's just evolved, and maybe it sort of the message has gone a bit skew some points.
It has. I'm just fixing my chat very quickly. There we go. Yes, no, indeed, exactly right. Well, thank you for the opinions on that, guys. I appreciate it. Okay, next up, we're actually going to we are going to play a video. And we're going to play a video of one of the panel this evening. It's going to be Stephen's video. This is actually a clip from a recent release from the Flyby guys, which is a really awesome video where Stephen is flying out over the Dubai desert, or is it half desert in that area?
No, the half desert's coming.
Okay, the half desert's coming.
That is coming.
But
This is Al Qudra.
It's easy for you to say. Okay, we'll play this out and we'll hear a little bit more about it when we come back.
Oh, deja vu.
Now, it's not like me to walk around with a small package, but today I'm going to make an exception. Say hello to my little friend.
Let's go and get some bikes. So we're heading to Al Qudra Lakes, then Al Qudra Road. It's a bike path, it's about 40 kilometres, 46 kilometres. So, and then we'll try our drones up there as well. So let's see how we go.
to see the
Miller, that was that.
to see the rest of the video, you can follow the link I've just put in the chat to subscribe to Stephen's channel. He's got another desert video coming up very soon, actually, as well. One comment I wanted to highlight. Yes, Mike Miller's was very funny, but also Treetop Flyer would like to know what it's like to walk around with a small package.
I have no idea. Andrew?
Oh,
got enough money too.
That's high.
I mean, to me, that video was very dry.
Ooh.
Chilton Fly, we will come back to your to your question in just a moment. But Stephen, let me know a little bit more about that video. So you're obviously working over in Dubai, and you were riding along that road. Were you not scared that you're going to get knocked over by huge semis and
Absolutely
Toyota
not,
Land
because
Cruisers?
this was actually a cycle path. It's a cycle road, which is the place is called Al Qudra, and it's a 46. Easy for me to say. 46. It was actually 50 kilometers. Actually, it was because when you get saddle sore at 46 kilometers, and then you have to do that last 4 kilometers.
I get saddle sore looking at the bike.
It was, but I have to say it was absolutely worth it. I mean, those of you who watch the video and you see, I mean, there was incredible scenery, and that was the first time I was flying the Mini 2. So we had just got it, and
it's great footage out of a little drone, isn't it? And the ground,
really, yeah.
The ground camera, there was an Osmo Action, wasn't it?
The Osmo Action on the ground as well, yeah. And
incredible little camera.
but really, and that's the best time to go at this time of year in January, because it's more like the hottest part of a UK and Finnish summer.
Yes.
And we just found another desert a few days ago, so that's my next video that's coming out, and this is, well, you guys have seen some of the photos as well that I've had there, but this place is incredible.
Very nice.
You'll see the video that I've made. It's a lot shorter. I just wanted to show the footage itself. It's really absolutely stunning, and it's just wow. Yeah.
Was there any snakes? I don't do snakes.
I
do reptiles.
Seen camels, antelopes, and scorpions.
I can probably deal with all those. I just can't do snakes.
No, I didn't see any snakes. Thankfully.
You and Indiana Jones, apparently. He didn't like snakes either, does he? So there you go. You're in good company. Just before we move on to the next part, I just want to remind everyone that tonight is Thursday night. So, of course, Thursday Night Live is on 7 p.m. Central, 1 a.m. in the UK over on Ken Heron's channel. The co-host this evening is Kelly Green, and it's Lexi Jansen, who is a German FPV YouTuber, will be the guest this evening. So head on over there, and I'll be in the live chat to say hello to anybody that comes in as well. So why not come and join me if you're up that late in the UK, or if, of course, in the US, you're probably a regular visitor there as well. So back to the questions from the chat. We had one from Chilton Flyer, and this is one that I hear a decent amount. If you're flying on private land below the height of the highest structure, the CAA do not control that piece of airspace, the landowner does, so why do we need a spotter or register? I think that's the answer to that is definition. Is probably the one word that will serve a lot of that issue, from the point of view that it isn't necessarily the definition that you're relying on isn't necessarily accurate. But I know that Andrew, you seem keen to weigh in on this one.
I think this comes up every so often. This is usually a Chinese whisper situation in relation to the law. So the law as it stands, all airspace in the UK, as soon as you want to take off, that's CAA controlled airspace outside. Indoors, no, it's they've already said it's the health and safety executive if it's commercial activity. But no, any airspace outside is CAA. Now, what the confusion is here is the Civil Aviation Act of 1982, and it's actually a part that was in relation to primarily tar cranes.
Yes,
over people's back gardens. And it says that you have a reasonable expectation of privacy from certain aerial structures and different things. So basically, it's mainly about tar cranes overshadowing your garden. and your reasonable expectation of use of the garden. So there's a reasonable expectation of, to an extent, privacy, as we've discussed before, but also just from free from aerial use. And that's partly why the CA set the rules as distances, because, you know, if you don't give permission to someone to fly near your house, you know, under the old system it was 50 meters, and under the new systems it's potentially 50 horizontal or 30 of certain things. So the CA are protecting your privacy in relation to that.
Yes.
It doesn't mean that gives you freedom for that airspace. It means that they're putting measures in place to protect the people who don't want to be bothered by drones or anything else.
Yes, yeah. But if you're taking off from your own land, that envelope of privacy that's protected quite rightly, that doesn't give you any kind of airspace benefit, essentially.
Yeah, and obviously under you know, we're going down the route of where you can fly up to a certain height above structures now. Once we have the certified drones and things, so it's there's a few different things in there in terms of legislation, but yeah, it's not that the CAA have said, right, you're in charge of your own airspace below your building height or anything. I mean, you know, what happens if you put an aerial up then? Does that extend it by a meter? Or, you know, the CAA have said as soon as any airspace in the UK is not anyone's property. They've confirmed that previously. It's a case of they regulate it. It's a state asset.
Yes.
So, same as the water.
So as I was saying at the beginning, it is more about definition than actually, because of the privacy bubble, that doesn't define the airspace as your airspace or anything else like that. It is still controlled by the CAA, but yes, they protect. Which is why, again, even on the CAA's own website, when they talk about drone flight, they talk about ensuring that you are a reasonable height above people and property, even if you're flying something like the Mini 2, to ensure that you protect privacy, so that you don't sort of, you know, take your Mini 2 across to your neighbour's house and start watching them having their picnic in the garden or something. You know, at eye height level, you don't become, the Mini 2 doesn't become one of the picnickers, as it were. So it is a privacy protection rather than necessarily a designation of ownership of airspace. And I know that's a debate over in the States as well, but that's a whole different kettle of fish, as it were. Next subject, GVC. So I have an A2 CFC. If I wanted to go to the next step and get a GVC, what is that going to give me?
Compared to an A2, it depends what you're going to fly and what you're going to do.
Yeah.
I mean, GVC unlocks a lot more.
Okay.
So GVC means you can get exemptions and operational authorization from the CAA to do other things. There's a framework within that, and there's also going to be add-ons coming out soon in relation to adding EVLOS and different things on, so you can basically, almost like a driving license, have different categories for different types of use or vehicles. It doesn't, if you're just going to fly a Mavic or a Mini, or it is really not going to give you that much, depending unless you want to be more creative in terms of where you're flying and what you're flying. It does give you the confidence of the flight test,
of course, so
some people might like it for that. But I think it's there's a lot more in-depth training for that as well. It's a longer course, and there's more details to it, because you're expected to do more complex operations, because that's why it's all risk graded, because obviously you'll be in a specific category with the GVC.
Absolutely.
So yeah, it really depends what you're going to do with it. I mean, if you want to fly the Inspire 3 whenever it comes out, you know, it's going to be a GVC more than A2. So,
exactly, yes. So that's a yes then.
It's an airframe based question.
As far as separation, would it help me if I wanted to do a GVC with a bolt on to be able to get closer to uninvolved people, to get those shots that I want to get in built up areas? Would that help me?
Well, it's not a. It's the only route to vary your A2 permission. Essentially, are those conditions of thing is an operational authorization, formerly known as an OSC to an extent. Obviously, it's now all an operational authorization in terms of what the old PIFCO was, but it's what was commonly referred to as an OSC previously. It's or enhanced permission, but it's now under a different structure. It's based on risk. So if you want to vary things or fly bigger things or fly things closer and things, that's the only route you have to go down. The A2 is a very set course. You cannot use an A2 to vary that.
No, exactly. Good. Okay, well, thank you for that. A question from the chat, Marco. What, in your opinion, would be considered a reasonable height to fly a Mini 2 over other people's gardens, stroke houses in his local area, reference to the trespass stroke privacy? What would you say a reasonable height is, Andrew?
Depends what you want to do with it. Depends why you're flying over the garden. I mean, you know,
Indeed.
Obviously, if you're flying over to photograph my garden or activities in my garden, not there's anything nefarious going on in my garden, but if you're doing that, I want you to be very high. So it's a bit like beauty's in the eye of the holder.
Yes.
Reasonable
is linked to its use as well. So if you are flying over the garden, as he's saying, and you're on your way to, because you want to get up over a couple of gardens and get a flight over there, which obviously you've still got VLOS for, then that is different because you are literally just passing by, and therefore what privacy concerns there are would be different. If you're
also the speed, if you're just hovering over my garden, then it's different from flying at full speed going across somewhere.
I would say probably 50 meters would probably give you a reasonable amount of privacy coverage with a Mini 2.
Flying a Mavic Mini 2, I doubt you'd hear it or see it.
No, that's right.
On a day where it's not calm, you probably wouldn't even know it's passing 50. So I personally have no issue, but again, it's all personal opinion.
Yes, exactly. So, which is why they put reasonable as the determination, and they don't necessarily say 30 meters for this kind of aircraft, but actually 50 for this kind and this different situation. It is about reasonable, and it's the same as a lot of the definitions, like Article 241 with the safety side of things. It depends on what you're doing.
It depends on because as I said, if somebody was doing a drone light display 20 meters above my garden, not from my garden,
yes,
and it looked quite cool, I'd be like, yeah, fine with me.
Exactly.
If I'm interested in it, then they can fly closer without me caring too much.
No, exactly. No, I completely agree with you.
I mean, if we know anyone who's involved in light displays and wants to come and do one of my garden, I have no hesitation to say yes to that.
So that is an open invitation to anybody involved with the drone light displays, like the one over Edinburgh that was really good at the. Did you see that one, Andrew and Stephen? Did you see the drone light show over Edinburgh for New Year's? That looked pretty cool.
I didn't. I saw the London one. I didn't see that one.
Okay, Stephen.
Yeah, but did anyone see them actually take off?
No. Are you alleging that there was some CGI going on there?
I didn't say that.
Okay, I'm inferring into your words.
I've always liked British displays. British displays in British airspace. So I think those are the best ones.
I agree.
Yeah.
I mean, just the fact that it is a British display in a British airspace means that it's already another couple of levels higher for me. I agree with that completely. Marco saying, just flying practice, no capturing a video, photo, etc. Thanks. Yeah, exactly. Exactly, Marco. It depends on the usage there. And actually, on this topic, Aiken Echo is asking, what license or course do I need to operate drone light shows for commercial work? A2, CFC or GVC? That would be a very specific I mean, crikey, as far as the actual qualification is concerned to fly them, but there is a whole host of safety and insurance and everything else.
I want to say cap. There's a document that tells you. And I think it's caps. It's 722, but I think it's C. I want to say.
You think it's C, do you?
I could be completely wrong.
I know C has got things like.
Not A, it's not B.
I think it's A2.
You think it's the A2 CFC, do you?
I mean, there's other prerequisites. I mean, clearly, there's very clearly other prerequisites, which involve staying at better hotels and being as red as a lobster. That's clearly the prerequisites for any course.
Moving on. Okay, so one of the things I wanted to let everybody know that's happening on Geeksvana very soon. In February, the Perseverance rover will be landing on Mars, which I'm very excited about. Are you excited about that, Stephen?
Stunningly, I'm actually having difficulty sleeping.
Are you? Okay, it's one of those shows.
But it could.
Breaking news. I was wrong.
It could be the.
Is it? Did you find which one it was?
It's E.
Oh, it's E. So I was going to say C is about local government and all that type of business.
There's that many. It's hard to keep track.
I know, right? It's due to land on the 18th of February, and on the 11th of February, we're going to be joined live by Dr. Pascal Lee, who is the co-founder of the Mars Institute and director of the NASA Horton Mars project, which is basically one of the projects moving towards a manned mission on Mars. So he's going to be joining us and having a chat with us about Perseverance's landing, and of course the fact that there is the first drone going to Mars is on board Perseverance, and is going to be going through a proof of concept flight while it's there, which is going to be very exciting. I have a video from Pascal's last visit with Geeksvana, which I wanted to play out a couple of minutes of, which just explains a little bit more about some of the technology they've been using with a smart glove to be able to control drones. In the test video, there was the concept of the fetch was being tested as well, so that the drone could go to that ATV. Perhaps if you're in a hole or something and you think, okay, I need this piece of equipment, and it's on the ATV.
You might need a hook or an anchor. I mean, something that a drone could manage. Obviously, and that's still very vaguely defined, but you might need an oxygen cartridge for some reason. It's a real task to do things in space. Astronauts who go about repairing satellites or space station parts have tools that are designed to require minimal finger pressure. And,
that makes complete sense.
Arm motions. But you can see that if you really want to be a fully well-equipped explorer on a place like Mars, you want to have drones. You want to have something that will give you the aerial perspective. If you want that on the moon as well. And how on earth are you going to fly one of these drones if we stay with the interfaces that we have today? I see a wall behind you there of
controllers, which wouldn't be much use on Mars, would they? Because they're so intricate, of course.
I'm thinking that as cutting edge as this wall of controllers looks, it will one day feel like it's part of a museum of ancient interfaces.
Absolutely.
Because what we really want is something that will not take up, first of all, both hands of the astronaut. But second, nothing that's going to require joysticking, at the, and requiring finger pinching. And then, of course, you don't want to have an astronaut have to stare down at a screen.
No, of course not.
While the drone is up ahead. You want to really streamline all of this into something that's a lot more physically easy to do, and also intuitive and less prone to error, less susceptible to error. So there's this company called Intention. It's like the word intention, but without the I. It's just Intention, starting with an N. And Intention is this startup that was started up by students engineering students at NTNU. They've designed this glove as one of their first intuitive interfaces to not just fly drones, which is what they advertise, of course, but also to play music. So by waving your hand and your fingers, you actually can just play music. By chance, I was attending this conference in Oslo a few months ago, and I ran into this booth where these students were, and they demonstrated how their glove could fly a drone. And this is when all light bulbs in my head fired up.
I can imagine.
Because this was the solution that we were looking for. The movements of the hand, the movements of the wrist, the movements of the fingers a little bit. But the beauty of it is that you can really adjust the sensitivity of your glove to enable a motion with very small finger motions. So therefore, of course, when you are in drone mode, so to speak, you have to be very careful what you do with your fingers.
Of course.
But just let go of your hand and come back to some neutral position. The drone will essentially station keep.
This just looks so instantaneous, which of course you're going to need, because every second will count when they're outside of the mission bases.
So you're correct. The core, the original core of the technology has been around for quite some time. We've had some comments from people, well, didn't Atari or Nintendo do that already? Yes, there is some aspect of that has been around, but the challenge here is to precisely do some very sensitive motions, still effect change on your aircraft, and of course do that in real time with with fast computing happening as well. The interface itself, the VR goggles, we're unlikely to keep the goggles in the spacesuit ultimately. We think that what we will have is some sort of a heads-up display inside the helmet visor. The upcoming mission to Mars 2020, is taking a drone for the first time. There'll be a little helicopter on this rover. The rover is launching next year. It's about the size of Curiosity. It doesn't have a name yet, so we still call it Mars 2020, this rover.
Fantastic.
It will carry for the first time an aerial vehicle to Mars.
I like that little yay that the astronaut gives at the end there. It's interesting they use the DJI Spark for a lot of the concept work with the glove, but it's a fascinating idea, isn't it, to have the glove working in the drone. They're going to have things like they're going to have fetch and recover, so that the astronaut can obviously be taking samples and that type of thing, and he can send the drone back via the glove, etc., to the rover. And to his ATV, etc., and actually have stuff brought over, so he's not going to have to be fully laden down. So drones are going to have a really interesting role to play over there. So join us on the 11th of February for that. It'll be myself and Stephen chatting along with Dr. Pascal Lee. It's going to be fascinating. He's got a couple of very interesting updates to bring us as well, which I'm really looking forward to that one. So I get to geek out a little bit about my other love of space. Yes, exactly.
It will be a good one.
You may notice a little dog in that video around the base, and that's actually a polar bear dog. And that isn't a special breed where they've crossbred a terrier with a polar bear, but it's actually
that would be frightening experiment,
wouldn't it? Just
traumatized being involved in that.
It's actually a warning dog effectively, so it will warn you if polar bears are coming into the area, so that you're all able to take shelter. So it's a very important little animal to have with you. So there you go. So if you're going travelling to the high Arctic, take a DJI Spark, a spacesuit, and a polar bear dog. That's my advice.
And a gun.
Or just don't go.
Or just don't go to Mars. Yeah. Oh, that's
but are there polar bears on Mars?
Do you know?
Will the polar bear dog get
if anybody
part of the scientific program?
If anybody out there is considering starting a YouTube channel and you're thinking about talking about drones, and you think, okay, I'm going to collaborate with some professionals, okay, and
when do they
you think, okay, Crowded Space Drones, big company, professional pilots, they've got former CAA people working there, they're a professional company, yeah, great. And then you think Stephen Sutton, a normally highly professional guy, but he does have one
trotter.
Normally very professional, but I'm letting you off because you must have cabin fever by now.
You have no idea.
How long have you been there now? In that little room?
I don't know, 6 months. I don't know, 2 months.
In that little room with your small package. There you go. I did promise cheese to someone in the chat earlier. I've just delivered.
I'm not sure that the British contingent in the chat are going to have much sympathy, given they've been stuck in similar circumstances for almost a year now. Yeah. And Stephen's in a hot country, can wander about to the desert to fly a drone. Yes. I'm not sure the sympathy is going to be waving in.
Can have breakfast with Mossad agents.
You are definitely demonetizing now.
Did I just say that?
You did just say that.
Doesn't even have any gin.
I have actually. I've been drinking quietly. I've been filling it up during the videos. I've been keeping up.
That's it. I am now officially on a no-fly blacklist now.
Well, you're certainly getting investigated in the morning.
Probably. Yeah.
So you might get probed after all. Moving on, there was a question in the chat regarding being able to fly your sub 250 gram drone near railway lines, and this was an interesting one that I wanted to put to Andrew to get his opinion on. Andrew,
wait, don't be the easy option.
Okay.
If you're not going to, if you don't want to walk or touch a train or at speed and things, why would you want to fly a drone near one? The one thing I'd say is I noticed that Network Rail have launched a new map. I can't remember who it's with, but it's sort of like for requesting permission to fly near their network and things.
Yes, that's right.
It looked quite good. So I'm just, maybe if you don't understand the risks, maybe go on to that new map and have a look and maybe request something and see what they say, or speak to Network Rail, because they're relatively friendly. They'll speak to you.
Yes, absolutely, and to be fair to them, they do actually. It isn't similar to how some people would perhaps complain about local authorities, where no one knows anything about drones and they've been scared senseless about them. They do have a
there's a significant amount of drone operations in the Network Rail infrastructure, so they're proactively using drones as well. So they're not just a negative Nelly.
Exactly. So yes, no. If I will have a look for that, and I'll put a link to that in the chat afterwards, in the description afterwards to this video, because I found the Network Rail site, but I need to find the specific permission way that you go about gaining a permission. So yes, excellent. Okay, well that's basically the list that I have covered. Is there anything else that you wanted to put across, Stephen or Andrew? Total silence.
I mean, awkward silence. The one thing which sort of is fills me with a bit of delight, but also trepidation, is the announcement from the government that Belfast has been chosen to develop the unmanned fighter jet for the UK.
Yes.
Which essentially is an unmanned Eurofighter. Essentially, it's not officially called that because it's not owned by the same company, but it essentially does that, what that does, but without a pilot. It's going to be built in Belfast. What used to be Bombardier Aerospace now is Spirit Aerosystems, who essentially are owned by Boeing.
Oh, well done.
A customer of ours actually, but they have a lot of capacity there because there's some of their production lines aren't there. They've got one of the most advanced composite factories in the world.
They're owned by Boeing.
Spirit are, I believe, owned by Boeing.
And they're the people that are going to be building the drone aircraft. Because I know Boeing have the Loyal Wingman concept that they're building down in Australia, don't they? So it's again,
well,
there's a good group
I don't know
there.
too much about it, but this is very much a MOD designed it, and
Yeah.
now it's going to be built by someone. It's not a case of they've said, "I've got a product."
No, indeed, but I think that's again quite clever and innovative, because Boeing within their group, within their international group, are developing a very similar system. That's obviously going to help them from the point of view of being able to share some kind of IP. I know obviously different militaries aren't just going to be going, hey, here's all of our stuff and here's all of your stuff.
Yeah.
And even though we do obviously work with
Well,
Commonwealth
Spirit or the Bombardier plant in Belfast is like the world leader in composites. The C series is now the Airbus 220, I think. It was designed and built in Belfast, and the wings are still built in Belfast for the ones that are being made. So, but it's all carbon. It was one of the most advanced composites factories in the world in that respect. So it'll be a really lightweight, agile. I'm sure. My trepidation is, if it's built here, it's probably going to be tested here. We're not that big airspace wise.
Yeah.
Belfast City. The factory is at Belfast City Airport. My concern is that they may lock down a lot of airspace to do that testing, and it's not the CAA, it's the MAA, because military. It's a pure MOD project. So yeah, they can just do things. They don't really.
No, exactly. Yes. Yes.
They just go, yeah, that's closed, by the way.
Yeah, it's the same as the signal jamming testing in the south of England. The huge swathes of airspace was just. By the way, nothing will work in this area for the next 3.5 weeks.
If they do, they give you warning about it.
There's lots of water, which is good because they can go out to the Irish Sea. But it's the effect in Belfast. We do a lot of filming in Belfast as a company, and that's the concern. But hopefully that's several years away anyway.
Indeed, so, that's the hope. Excellent. Okay, well,
it's interesting where that's going as well. Actually, it is interesting that Boeing's getting into this unmanned, as well as I think Airbus are. How much are they involved in unmanned? I know they're at least involved in GTMs and stuff
I've seen their civil things. They've got that sort of passenger carrying helicopter, don't they? And things sort of. At what point does unmanned become manned, or vice versa? It's all good, but it's. I was surprised. We don't do that much with MOD, so we don't know knowledge of this project. But I was surprised we've already got to the stage where we can build essentially a fighter jet that's unmanned.
Yeah.
To protect airspace. I was surprised we've already got there.
Yeah, well, the Loyal Wingman project in Australia, the Boeing project there, is actually the way they're going to work is hence the name Loyal Wingmen. You're going to have one fighter jet which is manned, who is then going to control 4 or 5 drone aircraft around him, so that you still
swarm technically.
Yeah, so you still you have that commander in control still that's able to make a human reaction to what's happening on the ground.
What is the potential biggest benefit for Joe Blogs in the street for this?
From swarms, or just from
this project in Belfast?
Well,
how much more awesome could an unmanned Red Arrows team be? Seriously, they're using skill to get close. If you have a computer controlling it, you could be 3 millimeters away from another aircraft.
Yeah, but is it as cool? Yeah. I mean, because like when I look at the drone light shows, I love the coding.
I like the human skill element of the Red Arrows.
Yeah.
And we do quite a little bits and pieces around the UK with them. So
To me, watching an air show and thinking there is a pilot controlling that, to me is the buzz personally. But
thinking a computer's had to program that, it's having to calculate the air, the weather and everything. That's equally as complex, albeit it's a machine doing it.
yeah, no,
Yeah,
indeed.
but
It's not a replacement. It's another show, but I think it could be an amazing show.
Oh, I
but
agree.
there's also less that, but there's less, there's less possibility of risk as well. So,
It's very sadly we've had a radar pilots die in recent years,
Yes.
so it removes that.
Indeed, it does. It does. Yes,
Yep.
indeed. Okay, excellent. Right. Well, thank you very much, guys, for joining us this evening. I really appreciate it. For everybody in the chat, we will be holding a formal investigation in the next 24 hours to ensure that Andrew Hamilton is in fact staying in a hotel and has not just been made to sleep in a van by the side of the road by Andrew McQuillan. So we will be looking into that.
We're past the days of cardboard boxes and blankets.
But if anyone does see a steamed up van
yes,
sitting on the hard shoulder,
CSD Productions on the side of it, then knock. Don't come and knock in if the van is rocking, I think is the saying there. Anyway, we have a Mossad debriefing to go to, so we'll see you all, everybody next week on the 4th. Which will actually be the return of Liv Marie to the channel on our live show next week. We're having a drone show, which is going to be a lot of fun. So we'll see you there at 9 p.m. back to the normal time of 9 p.m. UK, which is 4 p.m. Eastern. So yeah, we'll be there or be square.